When you live with someone long enough, you get used to the way they exist around you. The sound of their footsteps, how they load the dishwasher or don't, their laugh bleeding through thin walls late at night. After a year of sharing a two-bedroom apartment with Jace, I thought I had him figured out. Thought I had it all neatly categorized in my head. Straight, chill, emotionally allergic, and very, very off-limits. I never meant to fall for him. It started subtly, I think, with a look. One too long glance at his profile one night when we were sitting on the couch, half watching a movie neither of us cared about. His eyes had softened at something, probably the dog in the film, and I remember thinking, God, you're so easy to love when you're not trying to be cool. But I shut it down. I'm good at that. Years of experience. Still, once you notice someone like that, really notice them. It's hard to unsee it, and Jace was hard not to see. He was one of those guys who made it look effortless. Faded jeans, tight white t-shirts, hair always a little messy but on purpose. He smelled like clean laundry and mint gum. The kind of guy you'd pass on the street and wonder about for days. But he was straight, as far as I knew. At least that's what I reminded myself every time my heart did something stupid, when he walked around shirtless or flopped onto the couch next to me with a little too much thigh exposed. We'd settled into a rhythm that worked. He was a contractor, up at the crack of dawn, back around 5 or 6. I worked remote for a marketing firm and mostly kept to my room. But we had our moments. Late-night kitchen talks. Occasional video games. Dumb reality shows. One time, after a few too many drinks, we sang along to old pop punk and he pulled me into a headlock like we were 15. I lived for those moments, and I hated myself for it. Then last night happened. We'd both had long days. Jace had been dealing with a nightmare kitchen remodel and came home covered in paint and drywall dust. I had back-to-back meetings and an overdue campaign that made me want to put my head through the wall. Neither of us had energy to cook, so we ordered Thai and crashed on the couch like always. We talked a bit, mostly nonsense. I remember something about how all cats are secretly judging us, and how the bar down the street had become weirdly sexy. His words, not mine. I don't remember when I started dozing off, just that the show had faded into background noise, and I was warm and full and too tired to care. The couch was soft, the air was still, everything felt low stakes. I must have drifted hard, because the next thing I knew, I was waking up and everything was different. Jace was there, not just there, pressed against me, his chest against my back, his arm draped across my stomach like it belonged there. His hand was resting lightly on my hoodie, and I could feel the steady rise and fall of his breathing against me, the softest touch of his nose near my neck. I didn't move. I didn't even breathe for a second. I thought, no way, this isn't real. He must have rolled over in his sleep. But the longer I stayed still, the more obvious it became. This wasn't some accidental brush or careless sprawl. He was holding me, and it felt good. Too good. My heart was slamming against my ribs, not from panic, but from this sharp, unfamiliar ache. I didn't know what to do. Didn't want to scare him. Didn't want to move and ruin it. Didn't want it to mean nothing. Then he mumbled something. Too soft to make out, but his hand, God, his hand moved. Just the smallest shift. A gentle squeeze, like he was making sure I was still there. And then he pulled me closer. There's something that happens when someone touches you like that. Like they mean it, even if they're asleep. It stirs something ancient, some deep, quiet part of you that wants to be wanted. I lay there, afraid to breathe too loudly. The room was silent except for the faint hum of the fridge and the occasional gust of wind pressing against the window. Outside, the city was doing what it always did, buzzing, pulsing. But inside, our living room felt like it had folded in on itself, like it was its own tiny planet. And Jace was wrapped around me. I should have said something. I should have gently nudged him off, made a joke, broken the moment before it twisted into something more complicated. But instead, I stayed. God, I stayed. His fingers weren't doing anything dramatic, just resting lightly on my stomach, but the weight of them felt impossible. My hoodie had ridden up a bit in my sleep, so his touch was on bare skin now. Casual. Innocent. But enough to set fire to every nerve in my body. I could feel the warmth of him behind me, his breath soft and even against the back of my neck. I tried not to read into it. I told myself maybe he just got cold. Maybe he was sleep cuddling and it meant nothing. Some people are like that, touchy in their sleep. But Jace wasn't that guy. He wasn't the kind to share a bed, let alone curl up behind someone like this. I'd seen him crash on the couch plenty of times after a long night. He always sprawled alone, limbs everywhere, zero awareness. This was different. This was intentional. His thumb started to move, just barely, a slow, subconscious kind of motion. Like he was rubbing a pattern into my skin without realizing it. I closed my eyes, jaw clenched. I wanted to pretend it didn't mean anything, that it was all just some weird fluke. But it didn't feel like a fluke. It felt like something unspoken. And then he spoke. Not loudly, not clearly, just a soft mumble against my neck. "You smell good." My whole body went still. I didn't respond. I couldn't. My brain was too busy glitching out like a broken web page. I waited, hoping maybe he'd say more. Maybe explain. But he didn't. He just stayed there, breathing slow and steady, his hand still resting on me, his body still pressed close. Eventually, I heard the soft sound of him shifting again, this time further away. Not far. Just enough to break contact. I turned my head slightly, just enough to see him. He was on his back now, one arm behind his head, the other draped across his chest. His eyes were closed, lips parted slightly, like he was somewhere between dreaming and waking. And for a second, I let myself look at him. Not in the way you look at your roommate or your friend, but in the way you look at someone you've been trying not to want for way too long. And I thought, what the hell just happened? I didn't sleep after that. I lay there until the sky outside the window turned soft and gray, and the sounds of the street started trickling back in. Jace didn't move. Not until around 7, when his alarm buzzed faintly from his phone on the coffee table. He blinked awake slowly, groaning as he reached for it. I pretended to be asleep. I don't know why. Maybe because I didn't want to make it real yet. Or maybe because I didn't trust myself not to say something reckless the second I saw his face. He sat up, rubbed his eyes, and muttered something under his breath about hating mornings. Then he stood, stretched, and walked toward the bathroom, yawning as he scratched the back of his head, like nothing had happened. Like he hadn't curled around me in the middle of the night and held me, like I was something he wanted to keep close. I waited until the shower started before I sat up, my heart still thudding like I'd run a marathon in my sleep. And that's when I realized my hoodie wasn't mine, it was Jace's. I'd grabbed it half asleep after we finished the Thai food, not even noticing the difference in the dark. That scent, him. It had been with me all night. No wonder he'd said what he said. "You smell good." He wasn't dreaming. He knew exactly what he was saying. By the time I got out of bed, Jace was already gone. His keys were missing from the hook. His boots gone from beside the door. He'd left behind a coffee mug, his usual one, the blue one with the chipped rim, and a faint scent of his cologne in the hallway that made my chest tighten for reasons I didn't want to name yet. I stood in the kitchen for a while, staring at the mug like it might offer me some kind of explanation. "You smell good." That wasn't a sleep mumble. That wasn't nothing. And that arm around me? The way he pulled me closer? There were too many layers to ignore. Still, when I finally convinced myself to move, I slipped into my usual morning routine like nothing had happened. Laptop open, coffee brewing, pretending to scroll Slack while rereading the same sentence in an email 12 times. But my brain wouldn't shut up. I kept remembering the heat of him against me, the weight of his hand on my stomach, the way his thumb had moved. Slow. Absent-minded. Familiar. Almost. It was like my skin still remembered him. I kept jumping every time I heard a sound in the hallway, expecting the door to open, half wanting it to, half dreading it. By early afternoon, I gave up and texted him. Me. "Hey, everything good?" The little, delivered bubble sat there, smug and silent. No response. I waited an hour, then another. By the time the sun dipped behind the buildings, and our apartment started glowing in that orange hour light that made everything feel too honest, I'd convinced myself I'd imagined the whole thing. Maybe he was asleep. Maybe the "you smell good" was part of a dream. Maybe the cuddle was just a twitch, a drunken misfire, a brain hiccup from someone too exhausted to know what he was doing. But then I heard the door open. I looked up from my laptop and saw him. Jay stepped inside like nothing was different. Backpack slung over one shoulder, hoodie tied around his waist, hair still damp from a post-work rinse at the gym. "Hey," he said, voice casual. "You eat?" I blinked at him. "You're home late." "Yeah, I stopped by Mikey's. He needed help moving his couch. Whole thing was a nightmare." "Ate there too." He dropped his bag by the door and moved toward the fridge, popping it open like it was any other day. I watched him grab a soda and twist the cap off, taking a long drink without looking at me. "So you just crashed last night, huh?" I said, trying to sound neutral. Jace paused mid-sip. "Yeah, I guess I passed out during that second episode. My bad. I didn't mean to take up the whole couch." I waited. That was it? Nothing about the cuddling? The way he held me? "You were, I tried again, my voice quieter now. "Pretty close." He finally looked at me. For a beat, he just stood there, one hand on the fridge door, the other holding the bottle like it was a shield. Then, with a shrug that didn't match the tension in his shoulders, he said, "Yeah, sorry if that was weird. I was half asleep. I didn't even realize." Bullshit. He realized. I could feel the moment it became conscious, the second his hand shifted, the way he tucked in tighter. He wasn't sleepwalking through that. "You also said something," I added. Jace raised an eyebrow. "I did?" "Yeah." I swallowed. "You said I smelled good." He blinked, lips parting slightly, and then, just like that, he laughed. Not a loud, carefree laugh, but something short and brittle. "Damn," he said. "Well, that's not embarrassing at all." I waited, but he didn't offer anything more. Just sipped his soda again and closed the fridge. I felt something curdle in my chest. That thing that happens when you know someone's dodging. When they're hiding behind a joke instead of being real. "It's fine," I said quickly, standing. "You don't have to explain." He looked at me for a second, really looked. Then he shook his head, not unkindly. "No, I probably should." I froze. He leaned back against the counter, arms crossed now, soda bottle on the counter beside him. "I remember waking up, not sure when, you were asleep already, and I don't know, you were wearing my hoodie, and you looked really peaceful, and it felt nice, being close like that." His voice was quiet now. Honest. And yeah, I guess I got a little too comfortable. I didn't mean to make it weird. "You didn't," I said quickly. He gave me a look. "Okay. Maybe a little," I admitted, my voice cracking slightly. "But not in a bad way." He nodded. Silence stretched between us. Then he said, "I didn't hate it." That pulled the air out of my lungs. I stared at him. "What?" He rubbed the back of his neck, suddenly shy. "I'm just saying. It wasn't some mistake. I didn't, wake up in a panic thinking I'd done something dumb. It actually felt good, nice, comfortable." I couldn't find words. My chest was pounding. "But," he added, "if you don't want." "I didn't hate it either," I said, cutting him off. His eyes flicked up, meeting mine. We stood there for a long, quiet beat. Then he smiled. Just a little. The first real one of the night. "Good," he said. And just like that, something between us shifted. There's a weird kind of energy that settles in a room after something unspoken finally gets acknowledged. It's not tension, exactly. It's more like awareness. Everything becomes sharper, quieter. Every movement, every glance feels like it carries weight. That was the energy that settled between me and Jace after that night. Neither of us said anything more. He picked up his soda again, took a final sip, and wandered into the living room like we hadn't just cracked open a window into something new. I followed a few minutes later, pretending to check my email while he scrolled through Netflix. We didn't sit close. Not like the night before. There was a whole cushion of space between us on the couch, but the distance felt loud. I think both of us were waiting for the other to make a move, a comment, something. But nothing happened. He fell asleep halfway through a movie. This time, upright, head tilted slightly, arms crossed like he was keeping himself in check. And I watched him. Let myself just look for a minute, the soft lines of his jaw, the way his chest rose and fell slowly, the faint crease between his brows that only softened when he was fully asleep. And I thought, what are we doing? The next morning, I woke up to the smell of coffee and the sound of him humming to himself in the kitchen, like nothing had changed. Like we hadn't shared something intimate and weird and kind of terrifying 2 nights in a row. He poured me a mug without asking. Set it down next to my laptop. Meeting at 10, he asked, nodding at my screen. Yeah, I said, taking the coffee. Client review. He made a sympathetic face. Brutal. And that was it. He was back to being regular Jace. Easy, charming, low-key, and I let him, because I didn't know how to be anything else, but it kept happening. The next night, he brushed past me in the kitchen and didn't move away as fast as usual. His hand lingered on my lower back for just a second too long. He didn't say anything about it, but his eyes flicked to mine like he was checking for a reaction. I gave him one. I held his gaze. Didn't flinch. Didn't smile. Just let the moment sit. And then we both turned away. It became a pattern, these little moments. Fleeting. Charged. One night we ended up playing Mario Kart on the living room floor, like we were teenagers. He beat me twice, then tackled me onto the carpet in celebration, laughing until we were tangled up and breathless. He didn't move right away. I didn't either. He was hovering above me, arms braced on either side, his grin slowly fading as his eyes dipped down to my mouth, just for a second. Then he rolled off me and muttered something about a rematch. That night I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about how his hand had brushed my chest on the way down, how close his face had been, how he didn't pull away like he used to. I kept telling myself I needed to have the conversation. The conversation. Lay it out. Ask him what he was doing. If he even knew what he was doing. But I was scared. Scared I'd say it out loud and ruin whatever this strange, slow burn connection was. Scared he'd laugh. Or worse, apologize. A week passed. Then, one Friday night, everything cracked open. We were sitting on the balcony, both of us nursing beers, the city glowing beneath us in that way it only does when you're drunk and half in love. He was leaning back in his chair, eyes closed, head tilted toward the sky. I ever tell you about the first time I kissed a guy? He asked suddenly. I blinked. No? He didn't open his eyes. It was in high school. Football camp. Just one night. Never talked about it again. I didn't know what to say. Didn't really count, he added. Not in my head. Told myself it was just curiosity. Boredom. Whatever. He finally looked at me. But I think I was lying to myself. My heart was suddenly in my throat. I've been thinking about it a lot lately, he said. What it means when you want someone but you've spent your whole life pretending not to. The air between us thickened. My beer suddenly felt too warm, too heavy in my hand. Are you saying you want me? I asked quietly. He didn't answer right away. Then he stood, walked over, and sat down on the edge of my chair, his thigh pressed against mine, his face close, his expression unreadable. I don't know what I'm doing, he admitted, but yeah, I think I do. My chest felt like it might split open. You're not just lonely, I said. You're not just playing around. No, he said. I'm not playing anything. We stared at each other for what felt like hours. And then, finally, he leaned in. Not fast, not hungry, just slow. Careful, like he didn't want to scare me. Like he wasn't sure if I'd let him. But I did. Our lips met in the softest, smallest kiss I'd ever experienced. And when we pulled back, He exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for a year. That kiss changed everything. It didn't feel like fireworks. It wasn't some cinematic explosion of passion. It was quiet, deliberate, like we were both testing the waters of something we'd been circling for months without admitting it. And it felt right. After we kissed, Jace pulled back just far enough to study my face, like he was trying to see if I regretted it. I didn't, not even a little. If anything, the only regret I felt was not doing it sooner. We didn't say anything for a while. He stayed seated on the edge of my chair, our legs still touching, his hand brushing mine like he didn't quite know how to hold it yet. The night around us buzzed faintly, cars in the distance, the low hum of someone's music bleeding from another balcony, but it all felt like background noise. "So," I said eventually, voice quiet, "is this a thing now?" Jace chuckled, nervous. "I don't know. I mean, I didn't plan this. I didn't even think I was." He paused, eyes flicking up to mine. "But I keep thinking about you. I've been thinking about you for a while now." I swallowed. "Me too." He smiled, and for a second, he looked like himself again. Laid back, confident, but softer now. Less guarded. We sat outside for a long time after that, talking. Not just about us, but about everything. Work, our childhoods, things we'd never really shared before. It was like the moment opened a door that had been locked for a long time, and now that it was open, neither of us wanted to close it. Eventually, we went inside. We didn't rush anything. We didn't tumble into bed or try to make the night into something it wasn't. We just moved around each other with a new kind of ease, like we were learning how to be around each other again, but with all the cards on the table now. I brushed my teeth. He made tea. We talked about what movie we might watch tomorrow. And then, when it was time for bed, he stood in my doorway. "You want me to stay?" he asked, like he was offering it, not assuming it. I nodded. He slipped into my room quietly, like he'd done it 100 times before, but this time, with intention. He pulled off his hoodie, his shirt, left on a pair of soft sleep shorts, and slid into the bed beside me. We didn't talk. He just pulled the blankets up and settled next to me, close but not demanding, and I turned toward him. Our foreheads almost touched. He didn't try to kiss me again. He just looked at me for a moment in the soft light of my bedside lamp, and then he reached out and rested his hand on my chest. His thumb moved slowly, almost like it had the first time, that night on the couch, except now it was purposeful. "I don't know what this is yet," he said softly, "but I want to find out." "Me too," I said, and that was enough. We fell asleep like that, curled around each other, no questions, no expectations, just two people finally letting down their guards. When I woke up the next morning, Jace was still there. His arm was slung over my waist. His breath tickled the back of my neck. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was bracing for something to go wrong. I just felt good, whole, real. He stirred not long after I did, stretching behind me, groaning softly. He said, his voice rough and groggy. "You always this warm in the morning?" I laughed, still not turning around. "Only when someone wraps around me like a human radiator." "Well," he said, pressing his face into my shoulder, "you make a pretty solid pillow." We stayed in bed longer than we should have. Talking, touching, nothing intense, just comfortable. Eventually, reality started to trickle in. Phones buzzing, work emails, the normal rhythm of a day creeping back into our little bubble. Jay sat up, raking a hand through his hair. "You think this is going to be weird?" he asked, not looking at me. "No," I said. "I think it's already weird, but in the good kind of way." He smiled at that. "Yeah, I guess it is." He leaned down and kissed me again, soft, quick, like a promise. Then he got up, pulled on his shirt, and headed for the kitchen. And somehow, it already felt normal. Like this wasn't the start of something crazy. Like it was just the next part of whatever we were now. It didn't take long for us to fall into a new kind of rhythm. We didn't define anything. We didn't sit down for some big talk with labels or boundaries or a map of what came next. But the air between us was different now, warmer, closer, full of quiet, electric understanding. And it wasn't just about the cuddling anymore. There were the little things. The way Jace would bump into me more deliberately when he passed by in the hallway. The way his fingers brushed mine when we reached for the same coffee mug. The soft looks across the couch that made my skin feel hot and my brain go fuzzy. We weren't hiding, exactly, but we weren't broadcasting it either. This thing between us was still new, fragile, a thread of something forming slowly between two people who were scared to tug too hard in case it snapped. Then came the first real test, his friends. It was Saturday night. Jace's old crew from his bartending days were coming over. Guys I barely knew. The kind who called each other bro without irony and seemed to communicate entirely through inside jokes and light shoves. "You good with this?" Jace asked while setting out drinks. I looked up from the pizza menu. "With what? The beer pong tournament you apparently didn't warn me about?" He smirked. "With them being here. You know with us." He didn't say it, but I heard the subtext. They didn't know. And Jace wasn't sure if they'd be cool with it, or maybe he wasn't sure if he was ready to be that guy in front of them. I shrugged, trying to keep it light. "I'll play it chill if you do." He nodded, but his jaw was tight. I could tell he was nervous. Not for himself, for me. That did something to my chest. The guys showed up around 8, loud, full of energy, reeking of cheap cologne and loyalty. They greeted Jace with backslaps and rough hugs, and the kind of affection guys only show when they're already 3 beers in. "Yo, you the roomie?" one of them asked me, offering a fist bump. "Guilty," I said, forcing a grin. "Try not to break my furniture." They laughed, and the night rolled on. We drank, played dumb games, argued over music, and debated whether pineapple belonged on pizza. I mostly stayed quiet, hanging on the edge of the group, letting Jace be the center of it all. But every so often, I'd catch his eyes on me, checking, making sure I was okay. Around midnight, when most of the group was either passed out on the couch or deeply engaged in a drunken Mario Kart battle, I stepped onto the balcony for air. A few minutes later, Jace joined me. "You surviving?" he asked, leaning on the railing beside me. "Barely," I said. "I've learned more about Dylan's intim life than I ever wanted to know," he laughed. "Yeah, he's oversharing." We stood there in silence for a second, the city glowing below us. Then Jace said, "I wanted to touch you all night." My heart skipped, but I didn't know if that would be, I don't know, too much, too soon. I turned to him. "You can." He looked at me, a little surprised. "I don't care who sees," I said. He didn't say anything, just stepped closer and slipped his fingers through mine. We stayed like that for a while, quiet, holding hands, the noise from the living room muffled by the sliding door behind us. It felt big, not dramatic, not performative, just real. Eventually, we went back inside. No one said anything. If anyone noticed, they didn't care. Or they understood. By the end of the night, the apartment was a disaster zone. Half-empty cups, someone's shoes in the bathroom, and a suspicious stain on the rug we both chose to ignore. But we were still standing, together. That night, we curled up in bed again, this time with no hesitation. His hand on my chest, my legs tangled with his. Our breaths synced in the dark. "Hey," he whispered just as I was drifting off. "You still smell good," I laughed into my pillow. "You're such an idiot." He kissed my neck. "You're idiot." And I think that's the moment I knew I was falling for him. Falling for Jace didn't feel like a sudden crash. It felt like gravity. Subtle. Inevitable. And honestly, I think it started long before that first kiss. Before the cuddling. Before the balcony hand-holding. It started in the small moments. The way he always remembered how I took my coffee. The way his voice softened when he asked if I'd eaten. How he noticed when I was quiet and gave me space without ever really leaving the room. Now that we were whatever we were, those moments felt heavier, fuller, like they meant something, and I felt lighter because of it. But falling for someone, really falling, comes with a kind of vulnerability I wasn't used to. There's fear in it, even when everything feels good, especially when it does. One night, about 2 weeks after everything started, I woke up around 2 a.m., and Jace wasn't in bed. At first, I thought maybe he was in the bathroom, but when I didn't hear anything, I got up and padded into the living room. He was on the couch, sitting in the dark, hoodie pulled up, elbows on his knees, staring at nothing. My stomach dropped a little. "You okay?" I asked gently. He turned, and the way his face softened when he saw me almost made my knees go weak. "Yeah," he said quickly. "Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to wake you." "You didn't." I came over and sat beside him. He didn't say anything right away, just leaned into me, shoulder to shoulder. "I've just been thinking," he said quietly. "About?" he sighed. "About how weird this is. Not in a bad way. Just, this was never something I pictured for myself. Guys, you." I nodded. "I get it. It's not like I'm confused. I'm not. I know I want you. But part of my brain keeps trying to put a label on it, and none of them fit exactly right." I waited, letting the silence stretch. "I guess I'm scared I'm gonna screw this up," he said. I reached for his hand. "You're not. We're figuring it out together, remember?" He looked down at our fingers intertwined. Then he let out a small, shaky laugh. "I've never felt like this before. And it's kind of terrifying." "Yeah," I said softly. "Me too." We stayed like that a long time. No TV, no music. Just the low hum of the city outside and the quiet rhythm of two people trying to navigate something fragile and new. Eventually, he kissed me. Soft, lingering, a little desperate. And I kissed him back. We ended up on the couch, tangled in blankets, talking until the sky started to lighten. He told me about his first heartbreak. I told him about mine. We laughed at the dumb things we used to believe about love. About ourselves. That morning, something in me settled. Not because we had everything figured out. Not because we knew where this was going. But because I knew, deep down, that he wasn't going anywhere. Neither was I. Love doesn't always show up like you expect it to. I used to think it came with certainty. Big declarations, fireworks, the moment in the movie where everything clicks and nobody questions anything ever again. But with Jace, it came slow, quiet. It showed up in half-finished sentences, in loaded silences, in the way he'd rest his hand on my knee without thinking. It wasn't perfect. Some days he got overwhelmed, pulled back a little. I'd catch him zoning out after a long shift, looking like he was stuck in his own head. I didn't push. I just sat next to him until he came back. Other times, it was me, second-guessing, spiraling a bit, wondering what the hell we were doing, if it could last, if I was letting myself get in too deep, too fast. But Jace never let me drift too far. He'd find me, anchor me, a gentle hand on my shoulder, a whispered, "You good?" And somehow, I always was. A month after that night on the couch, we made it official. No big conversation, no pressure. Just a lazy Sunday morning, still in bed, him scrolling through his phone, me drinking coffee, half asleep. "So, are we boyfriends now?" he asked, like he was asking if I wanted to split a bagel. I blinked at him. I thought we kind of already were." He grinned. "Good. Just making sure." And that was that. We told his sister first during a phone call when she asked if he was dating anyone. He said my name like it was the most natural thing in the world. She screamed so loud I heard it through the speaker. My friends were less surprised. One of them texted me, "Took y'all long enough." We didn't make a big deal about posting online. We didn't care about changing statuses or putting on a show. But I noticed he stopped calling me his roommate when we were out. He started saying, "my partner," or just "this guy," with a smile that said more than any label ever could. There was a night not long after that. Quiet, uneventful, nothing dramatic. We were lying in bed, half watching something on my laptop, legs tangled under the blankets. Jace looked over at me, his expression soft. "Do you ever think about how this all started?" I smiled. "You mean the night you cuddled me in your sleep and said I smelled good?" He groaned. "God, are you ever gonna let that go?" "Nope." He laughed, leaned in, kissed me gently. "Well," he said, "it worked, didn't it?" It did. It started with a touch, an arm around my waist, a half-muttered compliment in the dark. It started before either of us realized, in the way we made space for each other, trusted each other, cared in all the small, invisible ways. And now? Now it's just our life. It's him leaving his boots in the hallway and pretending he didn't. It's me pretending not to notice, then tossing them in the closet anyway. It's grocery runs and late-night takeout and quiet mornings in bed. It's love. Not flashy, not perfect, but real. And some nights, when we fall asleep on the couch after a long day, wrapped up just like we were that first night, I think about how lucky I am. Because Jace didn't just cuddle me in his sleep, he chose to stay.